Sometimes when you're looking at a difficult problem, it's worth taking a step back. So I want to look at the problem of Kemi Badenoch by taking a step back and looking at the recent history of the opposition. So the constitutional principle that there's a necessity of effective opposition in the British parliamentary system. In a parliamentary democracy like Britain's, His Majesty's loyal opposition is not a formality, it's a structural pillar. And its job is to scrutinise, to check, to hold government accountable. And a government unopposed is a government unchallenged, and that's where the damage begins. Jeremy Corbyn, for all his flaws, understood this principle. Kemi Badenoch does not. And therein lies the danger, not just to her party, but to the political constitution of this country. Kemi Badenoch's effect will be significantly more far-reaching than anything that might have been created by Jeremy Corbyn. One may not like Jeremy Corbyn, one may not like his policies, one may not support the Labour Party or so on, but Jeremy Corbyn, no matter how divisive, no matter how difficult he may have appeared, is far from the danger that is Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch is potentially fatal to our constitution. Jeremy Corbyn was simply an irritant. Let's briefly acknowledge the weaknesses of Jeremy Corbyn's opposition. He presided over internecine warfare, especially between his supporters and Labour centrists. He alienated swathes of the Jewish community through his abysmal handling of anti-Semitism. His position on Brexit was evasive and led to the collapse in traditional strongholds. He was ultimately electorally toxic, culminating in Labour's worst defeat since 1935. But let's not forget, Corbyn led a party with a discernible ideological programme. He offered economic policies, nationalism, nationalisation, anti-austerity, investment-led recovery, which, while controversial, could be debated, challenged and emulated. He reinvigorated internal democracy, expanded membership and forced the government to defend itself on matters such as inequality and social justice. In 2017, his campaign even cost the Conservatives their majority. In other words, Corbyn's Labour was a flawed opposition, but still recognisably an opposition. He was ineffective in many respects, but he was still attempting to oppose. The person I would compare him to, in many ways, would be... now the name has just suddenly gone. Michael Foot. Michael Foot, I think, had the edge on Jeremy Corbyn. Michael Foot was a titan in terms of public speaking. Jeremy Corbyn was not, or is not. Now consider Kemi Badenoch. Her ascent to the leadership of the Conservative Party following evisceration at the polls has been marketed as bold, bracing and honest. It is in fact theatrical, reckless and constitutionally destructive. Badenoch has no opposition strategy. She has a culture war strategy. She is not scrutinising policy. She is staging ideological theatre, and not for the good of the country, but for the applause from a shrinking faction of Farage-curious media consumers and libertarian ideologues. Rather than rebut Labour's economic agenda with serious alternatives, she proposes deregulation without detail. Rather than hold the government accountable on cost of living, energy insecurity, or NHS backlogs, she rails against wokeness, the ECHR, and the civil service, sometimes literally suggesting civil servants be jailed. This is not opposition, this is agitation disguised as politics. There are 5 specific constitutional dangers here. The first is the delegitimization of Parliament by suggesting that democratic norms, equalities, legislation, civil service impartiality, judicial review are somehow illegitimate. Badenoch undermines the very structures that make Parliament a meaningful institution. She doesn't want to improve the system, she wants to discredit it. Secondly, by weakening the checks and balances. Under Corbyn, Labour was divided, but it asked questions. Under Badenoch, the Conservatives are fragmented and reduced to a jeering sect that offers no scrutiny, only provocation. There is no forensic dissection of budgets, no shadow cabinet policy work, only slogans. Thirdly, and this is where Kemi Badenoch becomes particularly dangerous, she normalises extremism. Where Corbyn tried, sometimes unsuccessfully, to manage extremism in his own ranks, Badenoch embraces it. Her rhetoric on immigration, identity and civil rights emboldens those who believe liberal democracy is a problem, not a solution. Her language, such as calling multiculturalism a myth or dismissing anti-racism as neo-Marxism, is not just provocative, it is inflammatory, and she should know better. The fourth point is that she contributes to the destabilisation of political discourse. Opposition should clarify national choices. Badenoch obfuscates them. She distracts. She derails. She infantilises debate. Instead of economic plans, she offers memes. Instead of reasoned criticism, she offers scorn. She is not preparing her party for office. She is preparing it for irrelevance while poisoning the well for others. And finally, most dangerously, Badenoch's failure leaves the field open to Nigel Farage and encourages fringe substitution. The worse the Tories become under her leadership, the more Reform UK rises. Corbyn's failure benefited centrists. Badenoch's failure is empowering the far right, and that difference is the crux of the matter. It's worth noting that Badenoch's leadership is neither the policy seriousness of Thatcher nor the political cunning of Farage. She is too doctrinaire to be pragmatic, too combative to build alliances, too media-obsessed to govern herself, let alone a country. She is rude to journalists. She is careless with facts. She is uninterested in bridge building. A party in opposition needs to persuade and to restore trust. Instead, she's become a symbol of adolescent contrarianism, refusing to apologise, refusing to explain, refusing to lead. And when her followers say that she is refreshing, what they mean is that she is unfiltered. But unfiltered is not the same as principled. It is very often just undisciplined. People who are calling her unfiltered are trying to be kind. They're not being kind, they're being stupid. Jeremy Corbyn weakened Labour as a political force, but it left intact the concept of a functioning opposition. Kemi Badenoch, by contrast, is degrading the very concept of opposition. And, of course, she is weakening the Conservative Party. Her opposition is not loyal, it is nihilistic. Her leadership is not renewing the Conservative Party, it is accepting its disintegration into irrelevance and extremism. And this matters for all of us, whether we support the Conservative Party, whether we support the Conservative Party as a concept, or whether we support the Labour Party or the Greens or the Lib Dems, or whether we support no party. What Kemi Badenoch is doing is destroying our politics. And opposition is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, our government, any government, governs unchecked, and Parliament becomes hollow, debate becomes noise, democracy becomes brittle. Already we can see in PMQs, you'll see it later today, Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer are literally going through a scripted exchange with no meaning. We must stop laughing at the clown car and start noticing that it is blocking the constitutional road. For unless and until the role of opposition is reclaimed from this circus of grievance and vanity, we will continue to suffer from a crisis of representation. And that is how democracies begin to die. And we are looking very clearly, whether we see it or not, we are looking at the death throes of British democracy. And the person with the dagger in her hand is Kemi Badenoch.